Dear partners, dear friends, good morning and welcome to another weekly video. This one about gender, making a connection to last week's 28th of May, where we were celebrating Menstrual Hygiene Day. Menstrual Hygiene Day enabled us to remember the fact that women and girls have special needs while they are menstruating during their periods, and they have special needs in terms of access to water, sanitation and hygiene. So we wanted to continue the discussion and this topic, and putting this topic at the forefront this week. Also because we are talking about COVID and we are discussing COVID, and we know that in times of COVID, in normal times obviously, but in times of COVID things become a little bit more acute, even more acute. Women and girls devote a significant proportion of their time to household activities and to supporting other members of the household, including when it comes to water, sanitation and hygiene, when it comes to enhanced hygiene, household hygiene, personal hygiene, but also taking care of the sick, taking care of the elderly, taking care of the children. And I was struck by a study I read last week saying that alone in the UK, girls and women were, in particularly women, were working 31 more hours per week in the household than they did in pre-COVID times. We don't have similar studies for all countries in the world. This can only allow us to think a little bit, to guess the impact that the crisis, that the pandemic is having on women's rights. And obviously there is a clear connection with WASH as one of the key actions to stop the virus is to practice more hygiene, better hygiene with greater frequency. So the impact is obvious. As you might know, 2 weeks ago, SWA launched a Leaders' Call to Action. And in the Leaders' Call to Action called for access and prioritization of water, sanitation and hygiene in the context of COVID. The call to action was endorsed by 76 leaders, world leaders, including several heads of state, heads of UN agencies, which is great news, obviously. And because of this video, I decided to count the number of women, which had already struck me as low. There were approximately 1/4 of women leaders signing the call to action, and I have to say the majority of them from civil society. A lot to change on this front also. So the call to action refers to, asks world leaders to undertake 3 actions when it comes to women, water, sanitation and COVID. Number 1, governments should take particular care that female-headed households have access to water, sanitation and hygiene that is affordable, that is accessible. This is number 1. Number 2, carers, nurses and other social carers who are very often women and who are very often more vulnerable to COVID should be prioritized and should be taken care of by the government. And finally, number 3, women should be included in decision-making processes regarding the WASH response to COVID. And we know that involving women makes sure that the access to water and sanitation will be more accessible, more sustainable, etc. We know that experts are predicting that the impact of COVID will affect women and girls profoundly, and it will affect them also on their daily lives at home as well as at work. And we know that the crisis will bring women back into more more unpaid roles. So this is our time to act. This is our chance to protect women and girls. If you have any suggestions on how our partnership as Sanitation and Water for All could do more in terms of WASH and gender, please let us know. Thank you so much, and talk to you again next week.